Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Leading Remote Team session. This session is being sponsored by Dell, who is one of our platinum sponsors for our spring conference. Dell Technologies is a collective force of innovative capabilities, trusted all over the world to provide technology solutions and services from infrastructure and software to devices. Their story began with two technology companies and one shared vision: to provide greater access to technology for people around the world. Dell Technologies is instrumental in changing the digital landscape the world over, fueled by the desire to drive human progress through technology. Thank you again, Dell, for your platinum support of our spring conference. We are very grateful and most appreciative. Our presenter for this session is Glenn Hasteadt, who serves as the ITS Director for Onslow County. Glenn presented this same session yesterday, and all I can say is for those who did not attend today and chose to attend today's session, you are in for a real treat. With that, I will turn it over to Glenn.
That's very sweet, Ann. Thank you very much. We're going to talk a bit about managing remote teams. What we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about three things, actually. We're going to talk about productivity goals, right? Because that's, we have to make sure that we're maintaining, the productivity of our people. But you'll see these are in 1, 2, 3 order. These are in increasing orders of importance to me. So the very least thing that I want to ensure is that I have, the productivity goals are met. The very second thing that I want to, the second most important thing that I want to maintain is, to contribute as much as possible to the mental health of the team and make sure that they're okay, especially during a crisis like this. And the most important thing to me is the culture. Make sure that we're maintaining the culture, moving the culture forward. These are really difficult times. And we have to work extra hard to maintain the trust, to ease the stress and tensions and maintain the collaboration and the team relationships. And, and the challenges of leading a remote team, I mean, I'm sure you guys have already gone through this. They're numerous, right? You want to maintain production. You've got to drive innovation. You've got to, at least maintain the culture, if not improve it. Then you've got collaboration challenges. You've got communication challenges and communication expectations, lack of access to information and resources. And then the hardest one, how to maintain that emotional connection while you're geographically disparate. So it's real difficult to be able to manage all that stuff. For us, in Onslow County, luckily, we had been preaching Microsoft Teams for over a year when this crisis came. We actually spoke on Microsoft Teams last spring. And so we spoke on Microsoft Teams, and so we've been pushing it real hard. Actually, my county manager actually accused me of, jokingly, of formulating this whole crisis just to get everyone to use Teams. Obviously there's tongue in cheek there, but it was a big deal for us to have that already in place and really help us move forward. So let's dive into these and we'll go through them one at a time. So let's start with productivity. So to maintain the production, we want to make sure that people understood that, hey, this wasn't just a 2-week vacation. This wasn't just hey, I'm going to go work at home and work in my PJs and not do my hair and everything else. This was actually, we had to work and we had to get work done. And so if you were remote, we required you to maintain a log of their activities. We did this log in OneNote, and we did it. This OneNote was in a shared workspace that was connected to our team, the Microsoft team. And so it was on that site for the team site. And it was in one section called COVID logs. And all of our employees, every staff member that we have had a page in there. So you had that peer accountability. So I could see what Ted was doing, Ted could see what I was doing, and everyone could see what everyone else was doing, which was great because you have to maintain that peer accountability, that peer, that peer responsibility. We were also already using Teams Planner, for our project work and our Scrum. So we had information, we had information planner that we kept track of, and of course we had metrics in our ticket system we used to manage. So we have metrics in our ticket system. We saw progress in planner, and plus we had the logs where people would put information about the logs in there. And I maintain a pretty close relationship with all the department heads. To me, relationships are one of the most important things that we as managers can do, or leaders, I should say. And so I maintain a really close relationship with all my department heads. So I got a lot of informal feedback from them and other key players that we have in the organization. We also, whenever we close a ticket, there's a survey that goes out, and so we get those survey results. And as far as keeping in touch or them being able to work or having access to the resources, we were able to load soft phones on all the IT employees' PCs so that they could answer the phone in addition to working through the ticket system, and one Bluetooth headset connected to their laptop would give them their phone, give them Microsoft Teams, give them, pretty much everything they needed to work. But I mean, one of the things that we made sure is that we also acknowledge the challenges and the distractions of working from home. But in the light of communicating the expectation of production. And so occasionally we had to do a little course correction. And I spoke about this as a comment in the session before, where they were talking about working remote. I think it was new technology was the thing, but everyone wound up talking about working remotely, at least when I jumped in. When you shifted from an office environment to this remote environment, it was almost like taking a new job. It was almost like moving into a new environment. And so when this happened, we had to kind of explain the expectations that we expected, the work expectations that we expected everyone to do for the production. So we had to reiterate through this occasional course corrections, like, hey, I noticed your log is a little lacking. Can you be more specific? Can you put some more information in there? Let them know that, hey, we are looking at this stuff, and we are, this is something that's important to us. And so, we were able to maintain pretty high production. Of course, probably like everybody else, IT in general is feast or famine. It's either crazy or it's quiet. I feel like during the COVID crisis, it was accentuated even more. And the peaks and valleys were so much more dramatic. Like if you were the person that was in the office, we had generally about 1 or 2 people in the office at any given time. Man, you were running around like a headless chicken. But there were other days where it was just quiet, and you were waiting for the other shoe to drop. It was so quiet. So that was a little bit of an interesting aspect from the productivity standpoint. But enough about that. Let's start talking about the really important stuff. So to me, the employee emotional mental health was a really strong concern, especially considering the nature of the crisis. We had a constant bombardment from mass media, from social media, and just, it being a health crisis, it was really different. And this was hard, and I struggled with, how was I going to help? How was I going to manage people with this? I really had to spend a lot of time thinking about this. And one thing I noticed too is everybody reacted very differently, and in some cases really differently than how I expected them to. The health-related issues, it was dealing with a part of their psyche that they generally didn't bring to work. That was stuff that they would have at home. That was their personal stuff. And they generally didn't bring that aspect to work with them. So I didn't expect how people would react to some of this. So some people that I thought would be kind of blasé were very, anxious about it. And other people that I thought might be more anxious about it were kind of blasé. And so it was really interesting. But what I figured out is, health-related issues affect the way people in ways you're not going to be aware of, because you don't know their family history. You don't know what experiences they've had with disease or family members dying or just stuff that they just haven't ever shared in a work environment. And it really changed their emotional mindset, at work. And it was interesting to try to maintain and try to help people along. But to do so, I wanted to make sure that I was available, not just physically available, but emotionally available. And there's only so many hours in the day. So, we used Teams really strong. And so I tried to make sure that I was always very available in Teams. If somebody posted something, I tried to respond very quickly and let them know that I was there. And if there was just the slightest hint of an issue, and frankly, just randomly, I would reach out individually and, just do a little touch point with them and say, hey, no, really, how are you doing? How's everything going at home? How's the family? How are you doing with all this? It was difficult though to do that without prying, to do that without feeling like, having them feel like they were being singled out or spotlighted. So it was really difficult, but you had to wait and kind of feel it out and see how it went. But that was really important, and it was hard too, because we didn't have I didn't have a lot of the cues that you rely on when you're in person with someone. You didn't have all the body language really from the shoulders down. And even the body language you had is two-dimensional on the screen, so it's a little harder to read. Although you would get, people don't realize that you can see them, I think, on the camera. And so you might get a raised eyebrow or things like that you wouldn't get in person. So sometimes it was a little easier. But you didn't really have those cues, and you're not seeing the person throughout the day, so it was a little harder to judge their mood, to judge how they were feeling about things. And so it was real difficult. I did think about setting up office hours and just saying, hey, I'm going to be, my office is my door, my office hours or whatever. But I don't do that at work. My door is always open except when it's closed. So they, that seemed a little weird to me. So I kind of dismissed that one. I did also think about working in a virtual conference room and just letting people know, hey, I'm going to be on in Teams, just doing my thing. If you want to jump on in the conference room with me and just work like we were sitting together in a room, come on. I just frankly never got around to it because it was so crazy. But it was really, really hard. Now, one thing I did do is, to me, humor is a really important tool. And I started incorporating dad jokes into our day. And I would have a dad joke every day. And they were horrible. They're just, they're horrible. They're dad jokes. So by definition, they're horrible. Not rude or anything, just bad. A lot of them were just bad. But what was nice about it is, there was still an emotional release. If you have somebody that's very stressed, they need that emotional release. And so if it happened to be a funny joke, which wasn't too often, just the act of laughing releases so much of that, and just acts like a pressure release valve. And frankly, even just the face palming and being able to send it, like we have our GIFs and emojis turned on. We have the not safe for work ones allegedly removed. We found a couple that kind of made it through the 365 sensors, but we have all those enabled, so people were able to send a GIF or the face palm and all the Captain Picard face palm ones and everything. But even that was a wonderful release for these people. It was something, and then you could laugh about the person that was laughing at my stupid joke, or making fun of me for telling the stupid joke. And either way, there was some humor, and we were able to keep it relatively light, and that seemed to work. That really seemed to knock people out of any of the mire that they kind of stuck in, and it got that banter that you always have in the office anyway, kind of ramped that up a little bit. And the other thing that I was able to do, or that I did, that and this was kind of something that I don't think I mentioned in the first time I did this, but I put a handwritten thank you card on every employee's desk, highlighting a specific action that they had done towards the culture or the mission during the crisis. And I did that so it would be there when they did come back. Because not only did I want to show my appreciation, because obviously they're doing this stuff, but I wanted to ease them back in. I wanted to make that first day back a little bit easier and try to ease that stress a little bit. And so that part of it's really, obviously we're not totally responsible for every person's complete mental health, but I think we have some responsibility to the people that we are blessed to be able to work with to try to make life a little bit better for them. The other thing is we wanted to try to find ways to maintain and build the connections that employees have with one another. It became really apparent. It became apparent very quickly, and I kind of had to pivot pretty quick. But it came really, apparent pretty quickly that employees could inadvertently self-isolate. If they just didn't engage or initiate anything on Teams for a little while, it really became, a habit, and they were able to kind of disconnect themselves from the team, really easily. And obviously that's not good for the culture. It's certainly not good for their mental health to have that disengagement either. And so had to think real quick, how do we turn that around? And so one of the things I came up with was a shared learning. I encouraged them on the IT side, at least, to, because I have 3 departments now. I have IT, I have GIS, and I have communications. So what I did is I encouraged them to find something that they could use to train the other people on the team. And that did a couple things, right? Not only were we able to do that cross training, which is essential. We've got we have about 1,300 users across our organization, and we have 10 IT people, which is pretty lean. But from my perspective, now we're probably it's wonderful. I think we're fully staffed almost. I got a couple positions, or one position that's in the budget for this year, but then I feel like we'll be kind of fully staffed, because when I walked in the door, there were 5. We had 5 IT people for 1,300 users, and I'm like, goodness gracious, couldn't even barely keep the lights on, much less move the organization forward. So, because of that wound up creating naturally a lot of silos, because you can't do cross training when you didn't have enough people. And so that's something I've been battling, kind of since I got here. But we've made some great headway. Oh my goodness, it's not even, it's apples and oranges when you look at the knowledge base from 5 years ago to today. Because they've been able to do a lot of that cross-training and documentation and things like that. But this gave us an opportunity to do more of that. But it wasn't just the cross-training, right? When you ask someone to do a training, that really does a couple of things, right? It boosts their self-esteem. I'm a subject matter expert, it also helped us to kind of do some peer acknowledgement too, because every one of them knew that they were going to do a presentation as well. So they didn't want to be mean to any of the other ones doing the presentation because they would just get it back on themselves. So what it allowed them to do is actually acknowledge and appreciate each other's presentations and the content. And so it really helped them actually even build a little closer relationship, which was great. One thing we talked about, but again, didn't get to because now we've been back to work for a little while, is all attending the same class and then discussing it like a book club. That was something else that we thought would work, very well. Let me advance the slide here. There we are. So that cross training was really kind of important. One thing we also did is to maintain that team culture is I moved our monthly meetings to weekly. We have monthly department meetings. I start those department meetings with kudos, information that I get, or survey results where somebody did something great. I've been here for coming on 5 years in October. I've never been able to start a meeting without kudos, ever, in that entire time. And I haven't had to fabricate them. I've always had feedback, positive feedback, every single meeting. I didn't do that necessarily weekly. My concern was more, how's everybody doing? This is what's going on. This is the information. So we wound up doing those weekly. And it also, again, forced them to kind of interact a little bit, as opposed to being able to self-isolate. So they had to interact at least then. The other ways that we help maintain our culture was to maintain the rituals that we establish in the office. So a simple good morning and a good night. Well, everybody, we're pretty strict about when people start and their day. We need everyone at their desk at 8 a.m. Working. It's not the case in every government agency, and I totally understand it. But we're at our desk at 8 o'clock, and so that good morning was great. There was a lot of peer pressure for everyone to have their good morning in, and have it in as close to 8 or before 8 as they could. And so, but it was good because that good morning ritual, because of that peer pressure, really, again, allowed them to maintain and establish those connections. It was really, really good stuff. So we'd see, of course, all the gifts about coffee in the morning and all the gifts about having a cold one, when they say goodnight. All those who get rolled in and rolled out every day, and that was fun because again, it established that humor and allowed them to have that outlet, and that was really, really important. One of the other office rituals we have is we have a stand-up every Monday morning to go over our project list, to do our scrum, and so we did that. Maybe we weren't standing anymore. Normally, we're standing in the open area, but we still did that Monday morning scrum, and actually, it was wonderful because I've got now 2 employees that work at our CHS building, and they can never make it over for the stand up. They just can't do it because by 8:30 when we would have that meeting, they're already going 3,000 miles an hour over there. But they were able to attend, and so it was great that they were able to see the projects that everyone had going on and get into that. So that was kind of fun. The other thing that I had to do was to pull people out of their shells and keep them from isolating was I'd encourage problem solving and collaboration. So, it might have been a stupid issue, it might have been a stupid problem or whatever, but I'd push it out there anyway and say, hey, what do you guys think about this? How do you think we should fix this? What do you think? And it them, especially for something easy, everyone knew the answer. They could contribute, and when they contributed, again, it didn't matter. They were interacting. They were talking to people. They were seeing what was going on. So let me put this one up. So that link right there. Research shows that employees follow their manager's reaction to stress. Right? If you maintain a calm demeanor, that calm demeanor is the rudder in the storm for the team. Now, that doesn't mean that we minimize, this crisis, but it does mean that we kind of try to, acknowledge that stress. You need to show that, let them know that, hey, this is affecting you as well. You're not a robot, but you have to express the confidence that the team will prevail. Not just the team, but the county and the community will prevail. We will come out of this. So I think it was a little easier for us being in hurricane country and being affected by Florence last, 2 years ago. A lot of us went through that, and that was horrible. I mean, I had a yard of rain at my house over that time period. I mean, we didn't measure it in inches. I had a yard of rain, so we just had a lot that went on with that. And you know what? We're pulling ourselves out of that. There's still places that are being rebuilt today, but the community as a whole pulled itself together. We helped each other. We got each other out of it. And so we had that shared knowledge already, and we had that shared connection already. And that was really important. But again, health crisis, different than any other crisis that we've ever experienced. And so if I heard an employee, that may have been discussing things in a way that maybe promoted anxiety, or, that I felt wasn't healthy, I'd pull them aside and say, look, I'm not just responsible for the production, right? I'm not just responsible for the work that the team does. I felt responsible for them as people, right? And I wanted to, for them to understand, look, I'm not minimizing the crisis, but I do have to maintain their emotional health as well. And just repeating the worst case scenario, because at some point the worst case scenario was, it seemed like 1 out of every 4 people wasn't going to make it through. At least that's what it felt like, and that wasn't helpful. But I wanted to make sure that we're going to discuss what's going on. We're going to plan for it. but we're going to focus on the plan and adjust the plan as necessary. We're going to keep our vision on what we can do and not on what we can't control. And we're going to make sure that we're going to make our department, we're going to make our group, we're going to make our teams, because I told you I have 3 departments. They act as one. It's a family environment. They really do act as one team. We celebrate birthdays together. We hang out at my house every Christmas together. This is something that we do, and so we were going to do this as a team. And not only were we going to do this as a team, but we were going to do this with the organization. We're going to do this with the community, and we're going to get there. In the end, and that's that second bullet point. You can't just be responsible for production. If you don't, you have to care about your people. I mean, that to me is the cornerstone. That if you want to sum up servant leadership, it's caring about your people more than you care about yourself. That to me is, if you're doing that, you're going to wind up doing everything servant leadership is supposed to do. And that culture, you have to be thinking about your culture. You have to be thinking about the impact of what, not only what's going on, but what you're saying, how you're saying it, and how is that impacting the culture in your team, and is it helping or hurting what you're trying to do? Is it moving you forward? The other thing I tried to do again with this health, it was a little different, but I mean, this is kind of standard anyway. You want to share that information. We have a new county manager out here. She's wonderful, the best boss I ever had. And I say that honestly, she is the best boss I've ever had. And I was so happy when she got the nod for county manager, because I was like, well, now the rest of the county is finally going to see, what I was seeing, because she was she was awesome. And one of the things that makes her so awesome is she communicates. She shares information. Not only does she share it in-house, but she's made it a point to have weekly meetings on Facebook Live with the community, to share information directly with them, so they hear exactly what's going on locally. Because a lot of the news media was talking about this nationally, talking about it in the world, and that's bringing in numbers from places that are crazy, like New York or Chicago or whatever. And so we were able to talk about this in a local way and say, no, this is what the impact is for our area right now. And this is what we're doing with. We have food distribution, and this is what we're doing for this, and this is what we're doing for that. And so whenever I got any information, I was doing the same thing internally, is sharing that information and being transparent about it. If we didn't know, if somebody asked a question, so, well, when are we going to be able? I don't know. I just have no idea. But I didn't do it. I don't know. I was very. You had to be very caring about this and understand that. This question is, where is this question being asked out of? Generally, it's being asked out of a state of anxiety or worry. And so you had to approach it in that way. And also it kept, sharing that information really kept everyone from feeling like they're disconnected, feeling that they were disconnected from the organization and disconnected from what's going on. One other point, I found that maintaining the vision of your culture is actually more important during the crisis. It was very easy to focus on the stuff that we had to do, or focus on, the extra work or the crisis or things like that. To me, if you're not focusing on the culture during the crisis, you're missing a huge opportunity, because me telling you that I care about you only goes so far, right? But this crisis actually gave me opportunities to do something about it, right? It gave me an opportunity to walk the talk more than your average day did. And that moves your culture forward so much more than just saying it. You know, if you're able to do something about it, if they have actionable, you know, visual activities that they could see, that they could say, oh, I saw him do that, or he did that for me. That allowed us to really deepen those relationships, because management is nothing more than a relationship, and allowed us to deepen those relationships and move the culture actually a little bit forward, despite being separated. So that, you know, to me was a really, really big part of this. It was a great opportunity for us to actually go and move forward a little bit on that. So those of you that know me know that Nick Lagiza does not go by without a cigar. So I figured I'd include that on my question slide. And I've been yammering on for a little while, but I haven't seen anything come in the chat or in the Q&A. So I just kept going. Are there any questions? Does anybody have anything that they want to share, or any questions for me? Feel free. If you raise your hand, you could put it in the chat. But if you raise your hand, we can allow you to talk and share something. But if you'd rather just type it, put it in, if you would, in the Q&A, so that we can get that answered for you. Oh, yeah, you're welcome, guys. Thanks, Josh. Yeah, Josh is my personal speaking manager. He's constantly finding places for me to go and speak. Apparently, he's my agent. So all requests for me to speak go through Josh Norwood. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Oh, okay. Well, you guys, again, just awesome. I wish I could see you all. Here's a question. What do I do if I find an employee who's struggling mentally or emotionally? Well, that's a good question, Darren. And that really depends upon, you know, the employee. You've got to have a great relationship with your employees as individuals, and that really is what's going to determine how you would react to that. And it also depends on, you know, what they're struggling with. Is it something that's going on in their family, or is it something that's personal? So if I found an employee that was struggling with something, you know, my first inclination obviously is to fix it. You know, I want to see if I can fix it. But, and this may answer the other question about overstepping. What I would try to do is see if they could come up with a solution for it, and see if and work through a solution together, collaboratively. You know, it's not going to be just my idea; it's going to be our idea. And so that's really what I would do, Darren, is work with them together. Would it be easier to hide remotely? Yes, certainly it's easier, Felina, but it doesn't help you move your culture forward. Definitely doesn't do that. It actually does the opposite. Have I ever felt I've overstepped or rethought my process after my encounter? I mean, when don't you? You know, I guess I'm pretty self-critical. I'm always questioning whether I could have done things better. I'm always trying to move the bar. I mean, if any of you know the people that I'm blessed to work with, you know they're wonderful. I mean, they're amazing people. I mean, when they came back on the 11th, you could not have removed the smile from my face with a crowbar. It wouldn't have happened. I just missed being around them, and they deserve. I mean, they're just phenomenal, really smart, really driven, great people. And so, it was wonderful for them, to it's just wonderful to get them back and everything. But yeah, I always rethink everything. One thing I also did, and I mentioned this in the first time I did it, is we had one department meeting where I told them all ahead of time, I want your camera on. And I only did it once. And I did this, first of all, I gave them a heads up so they'd have all their hair did and everything. But I did this once, and I did it because I missed them. I missed seeing them. And I wanted to see them and know that they were okay. I was really concerned about them. So I did do that once where they had their video on, and I got to see them all, and that was just that was the highlight of my week then. So I just loved that. Nick started a 10:30 virtual Zoom break room. That dropped. How do I hold interest? I have no idea why people join a room to hear me yammer about things. I'm probably the last person you can ask about that. I feel like I just kind of meander about the topic, and so I'm not sure if I'm the best person to answer that question. Do we have any other questions? Virtual happy hour. Oh, great idea, Donnie. Great idea. Oh man, maybe we'll still do that. Actually, we've been talking here about when the restrictions are eased and when people feel more comfortable. And that's the big one, when people feel more comfortable, not necessarily when the restrictions are eased. We want to have a throwdown party. We want to, kind of get together again. Again, I mentioned I have everyone at my house at Christmas. I invite everyone. And some people can make it, some people can't. But we'd probably do something like that again, or get have lunch catered or something like that. It'd just be kind of fun. But virtual happy hour, that's a great idea, Donnie. Time for what's my favorite cigar? There you go, Rodney. Lately, it's been an Alec Bradley Prensado has really grabbed me. I'm thoroughly enjoying them. I had a neighbor that got a box delivered to his house, and he's like, somebody sent me these cigars, but I don't smoke. And so he brought them to me, and I've just been the happiest man in the world since he did that, because it really allowed me to enjoy a fantastic cigar. And good to see you, Rodney. Always great. I missed kind of being neighbors almost with you. Any other questions? Well, Ann, I don't think we have any other questions, so I'm going to hand this back over to you then, unless something else pops up.
All right, sounds good, Glenn. Thanks again. Great session, just like yesterday. For everyone, we have 2 items remaining on our agenda today. The first is the business partner reception. Just a reminder to please take the opportunity to attend and network with our business partners, who, as we all know, are very supportive of Nickel-Giza and help make our conference possible. The reception goes until 5:45, at which time a prize session that I know you all do not want to miss out on will start, and the prize session will wrap up day 2 of our conference. So we've got about 15 minutes extra, so that's enough time to go grab our favorite beverage and head over to the business partner reception. Thank you all for attending the session this afternoon.
Thanks, Ann. And I'm going to hang out here for just a little bit longer if they keep the room open. So if you have a question, I think I can unmute your mic. I think I have that ability. And if you have a question, just let me know, and unmute you and you can ask me whatever you want to ask. But you got to let me know in the chat.